Welcome back. You here with Goldberg. Today we're going to be talking about The Rational Male. Should you check it out? This has been requested many times in the past, and the main reason I was reticent to pick it up is I had a creeping feeling it was going to be a very long and tedious text, which was quite prescient on my part. At like 25% of the book being complete, I already felt as though it had been a lifetime of servitude. And it's not to be harsh, just that's the way the experience was. Um, I say this because I read a great many books. That's not being braggadocious, I just perform research. And it's seldom you find one that is just so obnoxious to slog through. Weirdly enough, a book that reminds me of The Rational Male in this respect is also in the same category by Ivan Throne, who I like him as a public speaker. I think he's got a compelling story, but his book too, there were so many moments where he went, oh, please, it's done, right? And it just goes in drones and continues. People need to realize sometimes you have to hire an editor. And I think The Rational Male, they could have taken out like 40 or 50% and made it a much more effective book as a whole. You also have the factor that Rolly Tommaso uses a lot of words to say something that's relatively simple, and if that's your writing style, cool beans. The problem is, it does come off as though he's trying to sound like an intellectual, more so than is necessary. And if you want to be that way, you need to include a lot of citations. If you're bringing up psychology, science, evolution, whatnot. But almost all the citations of the book that I came across were of Chateau Hartiste, another PUA, or Rush V, who was a PUA and is now a radical Christian. And that just kind of seems like it's almost an echo chamber of knowledge. For this to be the Bible of the manosphere, the center of manospheric theory, you would assume they'd have a little bit more on the side of peer-reviewed studies that kind of back up what they're saying or making claims about. And now it's true, anecdotal and first-hand experience, a lot of that does have weight as far as social dynamics are concerned, but I still think that he should have included more. And of course, the reason why the book itself doesn't work that well is because he took a bunch of blog posts, pasted them into Microsoft Word, and said this is a book. But every blog post has its own theme, thesis, and conclusion. So you end up where there'll be a concept introduced at like you read 15% of the book, and then at 80% it's reintroduced as though you've never heard about it before. So you have a lot of redundancy and overlap that chokes up the reading process. And that could have definitely been changed. Like I said, you could probably reduce this a great deal without losing out on the sort of central message. Another thing, he probably should have put the iron laws of Rolly Tommaso at the beginning of the book, not the end, just to give a sense of, okay, this is what I believe and this is where we're heading. So with that, I'll talk about some of the stuff I like and then some of the other concepts to get a sense of what is in this actual book. So one of the first things he comes up with is you should not negotiate desire with a woman. That's a classic thing, right? You need to be operating from a position of power. And so I believe the principle is the person who needs the relationship the least is the one who has control. Whereas if you don't have other options, you're going to be under the thumb of the person. And oftentimes it's the man who's kind of chasing this woman who could leave him or have another option. And that diminishes his standing and his dignity. He brings up a whole idea of good genes versus good dads. So women will bang this guy for the genetics, or he's more attractive, but then she'll choose another guy who's going to be the financial provider, and you don't really want to be the financial provider. He also made a really good point about how society will say you need to man up, but then they'll denigrate traditional masculinity. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation. You're expected to meet a certain standard, but then society is saying, no, we're all about equality. Those standards shouldn't really exist. And then he also mentions, and this is probably the best point I came across, it is far superior to find a new relationship or a new love than try to fix an existing one which is broken. I think there's a lot of validity to it because if a girl breaks up with you, you break up with her, and then you try to kind of patch it back together. Usually it's because she still has some emotional connection or thinks it's going to be rekindled. You might say the same, but it's probably that you're just chasing the booty, and you paste together this shattered relationship using primarily sex. So you think of that old, it was a Cuck Bryan song, take off your leave-in dress, let's do what we do best. And it's an illusion, and it's not going to really be successful in most cases. So that was all the stuff that I thought was pretty solid. At the same time, some other points a little bit more questionable. He says you can have plates, but you don't necessarily spin them, so you're not actually having sex with them. But it seems as though if you're doing that, wouldn't you kind of, wouldn't she probably just walk away? Like, why is she going to stay as a plate if you're not having sex with her? He also says men can basically affect and change their personality. But as we know, personality is for the most part conditioned by the way you look. So if a hot dude says a corny joke, oh, he's great, he's got a great personality, he's hilarious. If a shorter or creepier looking dude makes the same joke, she's either not going to laugh or he's going to be the jester, the clown, the comedian. That doesn't mean she wants to have sex with him. So that's where, they say work on your personality. You can do it to a certain degree, but if you're not attractive, you're going to just be that clown, essentially. And then he also talks about, because he cites Roos saying you can train yourself to be an alpha male, but then Tomasi says you got this Corey Worthington who's like the alpha Buddha, the natural alpha, who doesn't have to spend money on dating coaches or PUA products. And you think, if that's true, then why do we even promote all this PUA stuff? Realistically speaking, if you want to improve yourself so you can ape an alpha, you want to learn about fitness, most guys who promote PUA are in horrible shape. They got like flabby bodies, and they've been doing it for years, so they don't have an excuse. You'd follow like Brandon Carter or someone else if you want actual fitness tips. Finance, you'd go to an actual finance channel. Most of these guys are making money off of scamming men with their products. And if you want to get women, most of these PUAs, they're not getting women, they're getting men and transsexuals at best. They don't have actual evidence of them with attractive women for the most part, or they want you to pay to see that evidence. So I don't see any point, but Rollo, it's weird. A lot of the stuff in his book would actually endorse the black pill, but he affiliates in real life with the PUAs. I don't know if that's because it's a better market, but in any case, it seemed to be a little bit of a contradiction there, although maybe, there's a deeper meaning that we haven't grasped yet. And then there's another point he made that I thought was kind of interesting. He says he used to be kind of the alpha rocker when he was younger, and now he's the alpha husband / alpha dad. And this goes to the point which I've done a video on, you can use game on your wife. I think that's a ridiculous concept, because the main power and leverage you have over a woman, if you are just dating her and not cohabitating, is your ability to say no and to leave. But once you are in the bounds of, you're cohabitating, you have signed a contract, or if you have kids, how's that going to work? If your wife starts acting up and you say, well, I'm going to maintain frame and walk out, well, she's going to say after a few times that's emotional abuse, and she's going to take your ass to divorce court. So once you're in a legal contract with a woman, or you're living with her for a long period of time, all this I'm going to use game seems kind of ridiculous. And it's interesting because Rolla brings up the French painter, I think it was Pierre Gauguin, who he left his family, moves to Haiti because he preferred the lifestyle there. And you wonder, why aren't all these red pillars doing the same thing? Why aren't they upping it and just living this great life? And when you get older, all the young women want you because you have resources. But a lot of these guys, like Rollo and others, are married. You say, why are you married if you are espousing all these red pill ideas? Just doesn't really make sense. And I think the reason they push this idea of gaming your wife is because it's a way of trying to incorporate those guys who knew about the red pill but got married anyway, or didn't know about it when they got married. And it's like, oh yeah, you can be part of the group too. You can also buy our products. But you're like, how much is it really going to help a married man? Let's just be real. This is similar to in the MGTOW community when they'll go, married men can be MGTOW. You say, no, you can't. If you're in a legal contract, you're financially responsible for a woman or kids, You cannot just say you're going your own way. How's that going to work? Hey, honey, do I have permission to go my own way today? Sure, but you have to pick up the groceries and fix the leaky faucet and pay off my credit card. Yay, I'm a MGTOW. It's ridiculous, obviously. So, that just has to be acknowledged. As far as would I recommend buying this book, I think there's better ways to get the same information, and that doesn't necessarily, it's not a slight against Rollo per se, but a couple of options for you. You can go to this Twitter page, Rational Male Quotes. You'll get the juiciest stuff without having to slog through all this redundant, blog post material. And he's written like 2 other books that I think are of similar design. I'm glad I didn't buy all 3 of them. Actually, if you're interested in picking them up, you can get it on Amazon. I'll leave the link. There's also a PDF floating around if you don't want to spend the money. So I just point that out. If you want to support the author, you can. Otherwise, you can get it for free. But this is going to give you a lot of his stuff that will really be memorable without all that overhead that's just kind of obnoxious to the average reader. And then if you're just you're a younger guy, you're interested in stuff that's practical for dating, highly advise this one. I read it last year, and people say, well, yeah, but that information comes from The Rational Male. I don't know if it does, but to be perfectly honest, it's a very succinct and concise field manual for dating, which The Rational Male is not. I mean, The Rational Male has some good parts, but like I said, you're going to be wading through a whole lot of unnecessary information to get to them. So this is a good option if you just want to say, okay, it's pretty much to the point, get the information. Alternatively, there are also people who have done YouTube videos that summarize a lot of Tomasi's points. That could be an option if you want to take it from The Rational Male directly. And it might take you an hour or two to work through those videos, but at least you're going to have, it's going to be a better use of time than reading The Rational Male, in my opinion. And then if you want something that will give you a lot of red pills, but also make you laugh out loud, this show, which I think you can find on YouTube for free, like the first 4 or 5 seasons are really good, then it gets kind of, cringy. It's a British show, but it just is about 2 guys who are essentially simps in different ways for women and how it works out or doesn't work out for them. This is definitely one to look into because not only is there a lot of value in a subtle manner, but it's just extremely funny. So that's my view on The Rational Male. I'll probably be talking about other books in the future, and if there's some you want to see considered, just drop them below.